For this meeting of the Road Safety Forum held on the 13th of June 2023. I have apologies from Councillor Anderson, but I can see that Councillor Toner has joined remotely and is acting as a substitute. Also present today are Councillors Barker, Cowie and Dempsey. Councillor Dewar? No, I don't see you. Also present today are Councillors Kerr, Mars, McCreary, McLachlan and Ray. Councillor Lockhart, I can see that you have joined remotely. Can you confirm if you're just observing the meeting, please?
Things that are of interest to me.
Thank you. We also have a number of officers present today, and with that, I'll hand you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Elizabeth Ann. First item on the agenda, is there any declarations of interest? I believe. Julia?
Item 6, 2.1, relating to Carnwath Road on Bray Head. I was the councillor that instigated that investigation.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. Julia. Okay, item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Can we agree that as a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 3 is the road safety and casualty reduction policy, pages 11 to 16. I'm going to ask Stuart Laird to take us through that report. Stuart.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise the Forum of the Council's approach to road safety and casualty reduction, which aligns with local and national priorities. In terms of the recommendation, the Forum is asked to note and support its contents. Moving to the background, paragraph 3.1, section 39 of the Road Traffic Act 1988 requires all local authorities to carry out studies into the cause of accidents on roads in their area and to take appropriate measures to prevent accidents. In addition, a local authority must prepare and carry out a programme of measures designed to promote road safety. And these proactive measures are successful in reducing casualties, and in doing so we also work with other partners in this area such as SPT, Police Scotland and Fire and Rescue. To effectively reduce casualties in South Lanarkshire, the Council and its partners need an evidence-based approach. The Scottish Government launched its road safety framework, and as a consequence of that, there are 4 interim outcome targets that are set for the year 2030, and those are listed in paragraph 3.4 of the papers. Paragraph 3.5 makes reference to the Council's local transport strategy, and within that there are road safety policies and actions. Our approach is routinely reported to this forum, and its last report on the 1st of November last year gave details of our casualty reduction and the methodology that we employ. In terms of our approach, it's been industry recognised, and we were successful in winning the most effective road safety, traffic management and enforcement category in last year's Scottish Transport Awards. Moving to section 4 of the papers, in terms of the Council's approach, I'd point out in terms of road safety disciplines in paragraph 4.1, these relate to education, engineering, enforcement and encouragement. And as a consequence, our resources are directed towards preventing or reducing the severity of road casualties on our network. In terms of paragraph 4.3, then explain the annual process that we go through in assessing our road network, and these relate to single site collisions. We also look at routes where there's a higher than average collision rate, and we also look at area-wide initiatives. The Council receives details of recorded injury accidents occurring on our road network from Police Scotland, and this data is used when we are responding to road safety inquiries or targeting our resources to look for improvements on our road network. Moving to paragraph 4.6, this details and explains the processes that we go through for our route action plan assessments, where we look at the accident rate on roads that are higher than the national average. We then apply weightings to these depending on severity, and we also have what we call a double gearing factor to apply to those locations, and that allows us to identify priorities. We use a similar process for single site assessments, where we look for accident trends over a 3-year period, and specifically where there are 3 or more injury accidents occurring within that period. Weightings and gearing up factors are also applied to that. Other considerations that we make are in relation to collision trends. We look at user type, causation factors, common factors throughout these locations. We also look at injury severities with regards to particularly vulnerable user groups and ages as well. In addition to that, we also consider any other alternative data that's made available to us out with Police Scotland Accident Database. Again, that comes with a bit of a health warning in terms of we need to take care with respect to that type of information to make sure that it's as evidence-based as we can. In terms of future considerations, these are set out in section 5 of the papers. We're currently re-evaluating and reviewing what we do to try and reduce casualties happening within South Lanarkshire. And paragraph 5.3 makes reference to 2 points. One, that we may extend the 3-year study period to 5 years, and we may adjust the minimum number of accidents occurring at cluster sites as well. In terms of paragraph 5.4, our existing policy will be considered further as the development of our new local transport strategy takes shape. However, a consistent and evidence-based approach to casualty reduction and to meet our statutory obligations will continue to guide the allocation of resources. In terms of paragraph 5.5, point out that we'll be having additional focus on those items listed in that particular paragraph. Finally, section 6, we make reference to pedestrian crossing facilities. It's very common for these type of requests to be made to us, particularly in relation to road safety. So the forum previously has adopted criteria, which is a gap acceptance model and methodology, and this is what we employ. Details of that are in section 6 of the papers. Moving to implications, I would point out that there's no implications in relation to employee, climate change, sustainability, environmental issues, and there's no impacts in terms of EIA. I would point out in terms of financial implications, we currently get funding from Scottish Government, SPT, and we also use elements of the Council's own investment plan. I'll pass you back to you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Is there any questions or comments? Ralph?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're really looking at the road system and road safety across the UK. What concerns me is the relatively low accident recording that we have on the road system in general. In particular, that non-injury accidents tend to be not recorded and near misses not recorded. Through practically every other safety sphere, the railways, the steelworks, etc., we would use non-injury accidents and near misses. We'd record them and use them as a method to predict and prevent real injury and fatal accidents. It's a problem across the road system. Perhaps the road system just wouldn't work if we really did enforce safety. So it's a general concern. I did like 4.12 that where sites don't specifically meet the criteria that council roads will do a particular investigation. I think that's important. And I hope that continues. Admittedly, it takes a lot of resources to do that. In particular, well, one of the areas I think we should look at is where, as a council, as a road department, we have made changes basically to improve safety, whether it has done so. One example would be the Columbia Junction. People probably won't know that, which had a bad accident record before we improved it. How much difference has that made? And probably, unfortunately, there are other areas where we made changes that have increased the accident rate. Thank you.
Thanks, Alf. Your comment about the recording of accident statistics is, it's an old one that's been given lots of airtime at this committee in various different places, and it's something that I've shared my views on, and the officers have responded. But I'm going to, just since you've mentioned it, I'm going to ask if Stuart can address that, or Colin, whoever.
Thanks, Chair. I think in terms of the information that is recorded, it's vitally important that we get a true picture of what's happening on our road network. The level of detail that the police go into when recording details of a particular incident, that is vitally of importance to accident investigation. The quality of that information has grown over a significant number of years, and that level of detail does help us from an engineering perspective to actually target and home in on where there are particular issues. And that's sort of moved on in recent years to not just looking at particular locations, but also some of the items that are listed in the paper, paragraph 5.5, for example, when we're looking at particular user groups. And that will be a focus moving forward. In terms of how do you deal with the near miss or the accident that hasn't happened, that's very difficult to quantify, particularly on a road network. I did an exercise fairly recently and calculated that the length of the road network within South Lanarkshire takes us here from Hamilton almost all the way to Madrid in Spain. And there's no way of actually having appropriate means of actually counting and seeing where incidents are happening. But by the very nature of an incident, it's very difficult in certain locations to actually predict what the consequences could be. And if you're trying to transfer that into a workplace and doing a risk assessment of, for example, this committee room, then it's two completely different beasts. What we have been successful in doing over the years is homing in on where there are locations where people are being injured on their network. And as you'll see from one of the papers that's going to follow up this morning, you can see that we have been successful in that approach. And that approach is replicated in other local authorities and those that are responsible for road safety as well. In terms of the work that we do reevaluate and monitor in many sections of work that we do. And again, that level of detail is going to be referred to later this morning. And so particular locations, once we implement works, we allow this a settling in period. We then go back and assess and monitor the success or otherwise of the measures that we have put in. Some of the work that we do, you mentioned Columbia Junction, that casualty rate has reduced quite significantly since we altered the junction layout there. It's not to say that accidents don't occur, but it is greatly improved. So I hope that gives you a flavour of what we do and in terms of how we utilise the information that comes to us. We do liaise fairly regularly with local landowners or residents of particular areas where they're coming to us to say that they've seen particular issues, and we do look at those in detail and assess those as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that explanation.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ralph. Kenny McCreary, you want to come in, Kenny?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just on the subject of risk assessments, the risk assessment seems to be based on the number of accidents and the number of fatalities, whereas surely we should be looking at the potential for accident. For example, I used to have a job that carried out where I had to carry out risk assessments in retail stores, and if I went into a store and there were boxes lying around and trip hazards all over the place, it wouldn't have been good enough for the managers just to say, well, we haven't had any accidents. So sometimes I think we should look at, for example, I've got Castle Avenue between Bothwell and Uddingston. Stuart will be aware of this because I've been banging on about this for 6 years. And there may not have been any actual accidents yet, or serious accidents, but there's a nursery at one end and a school at the other end, and people are using this as a racetrack, so you can go out and do all sorts of analysis, and you might stand there for an hour and nothing happens. But I just think the risk assessment should be proactive rather than reactive. I'd like just to hear Stuart's thoughts on it.
Kenny, again, as I mentioned when Ralph asked his question, it's quite a crude way of putting it, but I have made the point similar to your own. Where accidents happen, there hasn't been serious injuries, thankfully there's been no deaths, until there is one. And I've made that case to the officials in numerous occasions, and the response I get, I've got to accept the response. We don't always like everything that we hear, but sometimes you just need to grasp reality, and with if we had the resources, we could tackle everything, and but we've got to work within the resources that we've got. And that's not. I'm not defending the situation. I share some of your views, but again, I'll ask the officials, and I see that Colin.
If I could just maybe come back on that. 4 weeks ago, somebody did die on Uddingston Main Street, hit by a speeding motorist. So, what we're going to do about that? So that has now sadly met the criteria. Mm-hmm. So, does something now happen about that? Do we take some action now that somebody's died?
So, on Uddingston Main Street, did you say?
Yeah.
The point you were making earlier, is that a different area from Uddingston Main Street?
It's the same area, but it's a different street, to be fair. Castle Avenue runs on to Uddingston Main Street from Bothwell past the castle. Mm-hmm. But it's two different streets, to be fair, but it's also another hotspot where somebody did die. Yeah. So,
again, it's not my job here, in my position, to try and defend that, but if I'm going to give a response, I would say accidents do happen, and it's extremely tragic if somebody has died, and we know that it happens. But I don't know how you could address like the Uddingston Main Street issue that you've spoke about. I believe in Uddingston Main Street there's a 20 mile an hour speed limit in the main part of it. I don't know if that was the same area, different part.
It's a slightly different area, but it's not enforced. It's not enforced. There's nobody enforces the thing. There's no speed cameras. There's no police enforcement. You might as well not have a 20 mile an hour speed limit, to be absolutely honest. It's just a waste of time.
I wouldn't agree with that, but anyway, that's entirely your view. I'm going to ask Colin to come to respond to that. Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, Chair. I would echo some of the comments from Councillor Barker, Councillor McCreary, and yourself, Councillor McLachlan, in terms of some of the frustration that we're not able to tackle all of the locations where accidents could happen. Just in terms of that last point from Councillor McCreary, though, I obviously can't go into any detail. There's an ongoing police investigation in relation to the accident in Uddingston. We're actively engaged with the police on that, and whatever comes out of that, should there be seen to be any matters that the Roads Department can assist with, we'll do so. Kind of picking up on Councillor Barker's point earlier on, which links to Councillor McCreary's as well. I started 30 odd years ago in the Accident Investigation Unit in Strathclyde Regional Council, where we had non-injury accident data, and we had a significant larger budget than we have now. So we were able to look at all information that was presented to us and come up with an action plan. At this moment in time, we actually do have a not too bad level of resource for accident measures and interventions, but not enough. We are not tackling the locations where we have all injury accidents at this moment in time. So you can see from that paper that Stuart set out, the kind of various areas that we look at, route action plans, single sites, and a lot of the ET&P initiatives that Colin will come on to and explain in a minute. But you'll also see from another paper that's coming forward what this approach has done. I would love to be able to tackle every location, including yourself, Councillor McCreary, in terms of kind of the locations that you've set out, but we simply don't have the resources available. So we need to have an open, transparent, consistent approach across the entire council area. And for every location that you've mentioned, Councillor McCreary, I know for a fact Councillor McLachlan has some. I've no doubt Councillor Kerr will have some as well. Every councillor who's at this committee today, I can guarantee they'll have had a letter from me or my team saying, we're sorry, here's where our resources are going to. And that's why today's paper, I think maybe the next one or the one after that, sets out we're not sitting here saying no, we're saying not here because we're putting our resources there, and here's why, and here's the benefits that we are all beginning to enjoy in terms of the reduction in accidents. Our accident record across Scotland has vastly improved by taking this approach, Chair. So, as I said, apologies, we can't tackle every location where accidents may happen. We'll use the information that we've got, provided it's evidence-based, and everyone can have a different view of what caused an accident. It's quite interesting sometimes when you see kind of perhaps media coverage about what the accident cause was, and then you actually drill down into the detail, and it's somewhat different. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. Hope that partially addresses your concerns. Kenny, I've got Julia Mars coming in next. Julia?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this is, as you said, a frequent flyer to this committee, and I don't think any of us can be comfortable with any accidents. But the reality is the only way to prevent all future accidents is to close a road, frankly. Accidents do happen, and also willful behaviour that results in injuries. Where, frankly, and I'm going to use a previous roads officer's quote, there is no engineering that can mitigate for inconsiderate or dangerous driving. And that sadly is true. I wonder whether we have talked around this subject an awful lot at this committee, but in my experience, the best outcomes are where the Roads Department and Police Scotland can work together. Obviously, both have a limit on their resource, but where we look together in terms of what we can do, and where our road safety remit stops and the enforcement remit begins, then a joint approach has been really beneficial in areas of my ward. I wonder, and I'm certain, I know for sure that this happens, I wonder whether, a case study looking at that could be brought to this committee of where we have worked together to resolve issues as far as are humanly possible, knowing that sadly behaviours, drivers choosing to drive too fast or to take risks, sadly are often the cause of accidents. And sadly, another common reason is drivers failing to look, which again, no engineering or enforcement really can resolve, and that has to be behavioural change over time.
Yeah. Thanks, Julia. Colin has got his hand up, wants to respond to that. Colin? Thanks, Chair. I'm just kind of picking up on Councillor Marr's point there. There is an item further on in the agenda which just demonstrates where perhaps we were unable to prioritise physical investment. We are working closely with the police to encourage them and provide them with evidence to allow them to do some enforcement. That's not just the only location, but certainly Councillor Mars will take that away and look to see how we can perhaps just present a bit more positively about the good work we are doing, working with the police. The police have got their crash location sites as well, and we meet with the kind of Lanarkshire Road Safety Governance Board, and we have a discussion over shared areas of concern. Again, police are very much like us. They don't have the resources to do what they wish to do, but they do try and prioritise that as much as they can. So thanks, Chair. Thanks, Colin. I see Richard, you've got your hand up to speak, but I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to let you in to speak. You're not a member or a substitute. Really sorry, but if you get any questions, I'm pretty sure the officials would be happy to deal with you offline. Sorry about that, Richard. If you'd just like to lower your hand again. Is there any other questions or comments from committee members or forum members? No. Can we agree to the recommendations that the contents of the report be noted and supported?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda, item 4 on the agenda, beg your pardon, road accident statistic, casualty statistics 22, and that's page 17 to 36. And Colin Smith is going to take us through that, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this paper is to inform the forum of the provisional number of fatal, serious and slight casualties across the council area during the year 2022. I'll just bring your attention to the background in section 3 of the paper, which outlines the Scottish Government's road safety framework to 2030. It sets out the strategic outcomes for road safety nationally up until this point. We have 4 headline targets for killed and seriously injured casualties across Scotland, and then the same for killed and seriously injured children as well. 50% reductions and 60% reductions. These targets are obviously set nationally, but we have monitored and we will continue to monitor these locally to see our contribution to these national targets here. In conjunction with the 4 headline targets, there's some additional targets been set for specific road user groups and ages, which you can see in section 3.5 of the paper. An agreement was made at a previous forum meeting that we would monitor the causation factors of injuries and casualties resulting from these specific road user groups and ages, and they're set out within the appendices of the paper, Appendix C through to Appendix J, and we can see clearly what kind of causation factors have been ascribed to the casualties that have been undertaken across our road network. Statistics for all fatal, serious and slight casualties, including child fatal and serious, are detailed within the appendices of this paper. So we can go to Appendix A to see those. Just to detail as well, the COVID-19 pandemic and the implications thereafter have left a continued legacy on the figures that we see here, both from lower instances of people travelling our road network through to higher instances of home and agile working. So again, just knowledge of those needs to be considered as we look to the trends that we see within our road casualties. In terms of fatal casualties have been a bit more erratic and failed to follow any specific trend over the years, but we can see from our papers here that the year-end figure for 2022 was 10, an increase of 3 compared to 2021. This is one of the headlines that's not quite on trend to meet the target that had been set for 2030, but just to highlight this as a national thing as well, all across Scotland, fatalities have unfortunately went up across all areas. Road accidents are described as rare, random and multifactored events. So particularly fatal accidents can be very hard to influence. When we look across the trend of fatals, we had a low of 5 in 2015 compared to a high of 18 during 2016. So again, it's one that obviously we'll continue to monitor and investigate. Again, just to highlight the fact that nationally, the fatal accidents have went up as well. In terms of serious accidents, serious casualties, the year-end total for 2022 was 82, which was the same as recorded in 2021 and lower than 2022 and 2019 figures. When we look at that figure in itself, then we're kind of on target to reach the 2030 target that has been set. Again, nationally, there's been a reduction in serious casualties across our network, and we are showing the same trend also. In terms of our child fatal casualties, there were no child fatal casualties for the 4th year running within South Lanarkshire, and that's a trend we hope to see continue on. Again, nationally, there has not been just the same decrease that we have seen within our own local network, which is quite positive for ourselves. In terms of child serious casualties, there was a low figure of 4 during 2022 recorded, which is the lowest figure that we have seen recorded within our own area. Working in very, very small numbers when we're looking at child fatals and child serious accidents, and they can fluctuate quite severely. But when we're looking at that figure alone, then we're very much on line to meet our 2030 target locally. In terms of slight casualties, there was 186 slight casualties recorded during 2022, which was an increase of 36 compared to the previous year. But again, that's the second lowest figure that has been recorded. Also, if we're seeing our serious injuries not increasing, then it goes hand in hand. We'll maybe see the slight increase in comparison. The next slide I'm going to show is all our casualties. So all our casualties going back a number of years from 2004 through to 2022. And what you can see is a very marked decrease in injuries across our road network. The provisional number of casualties for 2022 was 278, and that really is the second lowest figure recorded since road casualties have been detailed within our road network. And if you compare that to our 2004 figure, which was over 1,000, we can see that the successes that we've achieved within our local network in reducing casualties and our casualty reduction approach has been successful in line with our partners and all the other efforts to bring casualties down nationally and across South Lanarkshire as well. I'll just highlight under section 5.1, our obligations under the Road Traffic Act 1998 is to carry out studies into the causes of accidents on our road and to take appropriate measures that are deemed fit and to address what we see happening within our road network. Our previous paper, which Stuart went through, detailed our processes in that regard. And I would just reiterate that the Council and its partners do need an evidence-based approach to address a wide variety of issues, including vulnerable road users, road user behaviour and the road environment. The national targets are to bring down specifically killed and serious accidents and injuries across our road network. So that's where we have to look at putting our resources into. But also as we look at all our accidents and all the injuries that have taken place, we do look at the causation factors to see why and what's been reported against all these individual accidents and to see what key trends and themes are coming out from those. And again, these are shown respectively within appendices C to J, and these will be considered when assigning priority to future road safety measures. In terms of this report, there's no specific implications in terms of the items that we see at the end of the report. And the recommendation is the forum recommends and notes the contents of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Members, got any questions or comments? Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for that report. Notwithstanding all I have said about appraisal of accidents and risk assessments, the figures for total casualties over the last, was it 19 years? The reduction in general casualties is quite remarkable, I think. A very good sign. And I imagine in that time that the total amount of road traffic has actually increased, and we're probably well now above pre-COVID levels and certainly above 2004 levels. So it's a good report. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. On anyone else? No. On that, no. 3.5 in the report, Colin. The 70% reduction in road users between 17 and 25. That is an extremely encouraging figure. Is there any background to that? Why that's such a good figure? Because we do know that I've read statistics before that most road casualties are, it might be incorrect, maybe just something that I heard anecdotally, that it's young drivers, usually within 2 years of passing their driving test, and it's usually on a rural road. And we know the reasons that might happen, but can you give us some background to what this particular figure is, a 70% reduction? Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, so certainly, as you said, the target nationally is they're looking for a 70% reduction in road users aged 17 to 25 killed or seriously injured. So that's a target for 2030 to bring a reduction by 70%. So again, the reason for that is that age of road user is overrepresented when you're looking at their involvement within road traffic collisions. And again, the impact to society and the contribution to society that such a person can make. That's why that target's been set that bit higher than the others nationally, just to put the priority on that road user group. And again, young drivers is one of the kind of key areas that nationally they're looking at to make sure there's a consistent road safety message to young drivers to bring the figures down.
And on that, you and I spoke about this often. The Pass Plus scheme, I know when it was piloted away back a number of years ago in Birmingham, there was a dramatic reduction in road casualties following the implementation. Are we getting any feedback on how successful that may be?
In terms of the Pass Plus scheme, there's quite a reduction in numbers that are going through the subsidised scheme at this moment in time. But certainly when it comes to this age group, it is one that we are continuing to look at as part of the monitoring process that we do locally. And when we're looking at the kind of baseline figures that we have, there has been a reduction in that age group, not as significant as 70%. We're seeing a downward trend, and we'll continue to look at that, as well as the causation factors for those aged 17 to 25 and what's been involved within those accidents there. And it might be road safety behaviour messaging that we need to put out, or it might be training, but that's something that we'll continue to keep our eye on and keep monitored.
Thanks, Colin. So going back to the recommendations, if there's no other questions, agree to the report be noted. Agree to that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda, Priority Road Safety Initiatives 23-24, pages 37 to 48, and that's Sandy Carlos taking us through that. Sandy, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise the Forum of the proposed priority road safety initiatives to be progressed during the current financial year. The Forum is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the contents of this report be noted and the priority projects and initiatives identified be progressed and implemented in line with available funding. So section 3 of the report, the background, much of that has been detailed in an earlier report presented by Stuart. So I'll move on to paragraph 3.3, which states that the Council will assess road safety inquiries and target resources and improvements where 3 or more injury accidents are occurring in previous 3 years, or on routes that have an injury accident rate greater than the national average for that type of route. As a result, the Council delivers annual prioritised road safety improvements at identified accident locations, routes and areas, and funding for this work is sought from a variety of sources on an annual basis. Moving on to section 4, the route accident plan assessment. So the assessments for rural A class and B class routes has recently been concluded. A number of locations were identified during this process. A total of 29 sections currently have an accident rate greater than the national average. Weightings have been applied for fatal serious road accident collisions have been identified as well, where vulnerable road user groups and ages are represented within killed or seriously injured casualties. A weighting multiplication factor has been applied to each of the route accident rate as a percentage of the national accident rate. And this is based upon the highest severity road traffic collision on the length of road. A factor of 7.1 is implemented for a fatal and a factor of 4.5 for a serious. This is based on comparative cost to society as a result of injury collisions of various severities, and is based upon work undertaken by road safety professionals and statisticians. As previously advised in an earlier report, a further double gearing factor then been applied, where at least one vulnerable road user or age group resulting in a killed or seriously injured casualty is represented. These are specified in Scotland's road safety framework and include pedestrians killed or seriously injured, cyclists, motorcyclists, and road users aged 70 or over, and road users between 17 and 25. It's not deemed appropriate to include the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation gearing factor within the route analysis. The number of routes identified for investigation this year has reached a small number due to a number of improvement works which have previously been implemented and require a monitoring period, as well as future alteration works associated with new residential or commercial developments coming forward. It is therefore proposed to investigate 3 locations. These locations are outlined in Appendix 1. Moving on to Section 5, which details the single site assessment. The annual single site assessment is also recently concluded, and this identified that 13 locations have got 3 or more injury accidents occurring in the previous 3 years. Weighting factors, as with the route accident assessment, have also been applied to these points. But in addition to these, weighting is applied for sites within the most deprived 20%, as detailed within the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation. Moving to paragraph 5.3, details where at least one vulnerable road user or age group resulted in a killed or seriously injured casualty. The further double gearing factor has been applied to each site's total points. It is not proposed that sites with a total of less than 3 points will typically be considered for investigation or action. It's proposed to take forward 3 sites as shown in Appendix 2. The 2 sites within Lanark were identified during the study that was undertaken last financial year, but were delayed due to funding and resourcing. And the 3rd site in Hamilton will be subject to further investigation. Section 6 details the road safety initiatives that we're currently working on. So focus has been placed on the categories identified in 6.1. In conjunction with partners, the actions and initiatives detailed within Appendix 3 have been taken forward to target road safety interventions towards these groupings. Further actions spanning education, engineering, enforcement and encouragement will be considered in conjunction with our partners. And contributing factors cited within the reported injury collisions. Please see Appendix 4 for a range of potential measures which continue to be considered in line with available resourcing. There's no employee implications associated with this report. Financial implications. The projects discussed earlier in this report will be developed further, and where works or initiatives are to be taken forward, they will be prioritised from grant funding of £150,000, which has been awarded by SPT for road accident measures. You'll note in paragraph 8.1, it mentions the Scottish Government grant entitled the Road Safety Improvement Fund will likely be available this financial year. And an update on that, we just heard yesterday that we had a successful award of £475,000 from that funding source for this financial year. As mentioned at the beginning, we recommend that the contents of this report are noted and the priority projects and initiatives identified be progressed and implemented in line with available funding. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. Is there any questions or comments? Not seeing any at the moment. Okay. Thanks very much. Can we agree the recommendations at 2.1?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Oops. Item 6 on the agenda. Item 6 on the agenda, school crossing patroller assessment, pages 49 to 74. And I know Julia has declared an interest. And what we'll do, Julia, we'll go through each of them if need be, and you can declare an interest at the last bullet point at the Kinmarth Road. I take it that's one. Okay, so, and I'm going to ask Sandy to take us through that report again, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to consider requests for school crossing patrols at locations within South Lanarkshire. And the forum is asked to approve the following recommendations. That the request for school crossing patrol at the following locations be refused. The list of locations is detailed in section 2, item 2.1. So the background for the school crossing patrol assessments is assessments of the above 11 locations are shown in the attached summary sheets. These also detail whether any previous investigations have been undertaken. The summary sheets observe that the sites do not meet the current criteria for provision of a school crossing patroller. Assessment results are based on information recorded during surveys at school journey times. A measure of pedestrian demand and vehicle flow over the busiest 10-minute period is identified from this information. The pedestrian demand is assessed by recording a number of children crossing the road, either with or without an adult, within 50 metres of the proposed crossing site. The vehicle flow consists of all vehicles passing along the road within the predetermined area. These factors are then combined in the formula PV squared and compared against predetermined threshold values. So for sites pertaining to primary schools, where the PV squared value is greater than 148,000, the patroller is clearly justified. In locations where the PV squared assessment does not prove conclusive, it falls between 50% of the threshold value and the threshold value, other environmental factors will be considered and used to revise the original PV squared value. This provides a weighted and more accurate assessment of the potential risk at a site based upon traffic volume, pedestrian demand and the local environment. With regards to secondary schools, where the PV scored is greater than 148, which is the threshold value, the location will be subject to a further risk assessment to determine whether patrol is justified or not. The risk assessment will make the recommendation on whether the request for the patrol is justified or refused based on particular road risks. But the PV score does not meet the threshold value, the location will not be considered to merit further investigation and the request will be refused. Generally, patrols will not be provided for secondary school pupils. The criteria described is based upon national best practice and were developed by the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, ROSPA, and the Local Authority Road Safety Officers Association, which is now Road Safety GB. This criteria has been amended, firstly by the Road Safety Forum in 1998 to make it less onerous to justify a patroller, further amended in 2011 to prevent the introduction of patrollers at traffic signals with a pedestrian crossing or at light control pedestrian crossings, and again in 2015 revised criteria was introduced for locations predominantly serving secondary pupils. There's no employee implications or financial implications to discuss further, and we again ask that you approve that the sites reviewed are refused. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. So Julia has declared an interest at the last one, so I don't imagine she'll be. Does she need to actually leave the meeting?
If she has declared an interest.
Does she have to?
Yeah, she will have to leave. So
Okay.
if you want to take the.
Yeah, so we could deal with all of the bullet points. If anybody's got any questions or comments before we come to the last one.
Councillor Mars.
Councillor Mars, Julia.
I am still here. I believe you're going to take all but the last ones, last one, and then I'll leave at that point. If you just indicate, and I'll leave at that point.
So I'm not going to, I don't propose to go through each one and ask for questions, but if anybody's got any questions or comments on any of them, they can do so. Margaret?
Yeah, can I just ask, on page 56, the Lockleigh Kyle Square Rutherglen location, what's requested by H&S? What does H&S mean? Health and safety. Thank you.
Okay. So, if there's no other questions, I'll ask Julia to leave before we agree to the recommendation. Is that the proper protocol, Elizabeth Ann?
Well, you could do that, or
Yeah.
you could take
Okay.
the first 10.
Right,
and then
okay.
Julia could leave for
So
that as well.
the forum is asked to approve the following recommendations: that requests for school course patroller at the following locations be refused. And I'm going to deal with all of the items right down until Wilton Road. Are we all agreed on that? Agreed.
Just ask
So
Mars.
Councillor Mars, if you could just go out and we'll give you a nod to come back in.
You can confirm she's left now.
Thank you very much. So can we agree the recommendation that applies to the last bullet point, that's Carnwath Road and Braehead? Can we agree to that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. So
Just
we-
so you-
yeah. Just waiting for Councillor Mars to rejoin the meeting again before they would continue. Welcome back, Gillian. So next item on the agenda is number 7, it's school travel work initiatives, and that's pages 75 to 82. Going to ask Colin Smith to take us through that report. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise the forum on the school travel plan programme within South Lanarkshire. The background set out within section 3, which details that school travel plan support is offered to all schools, whether it's their first school travel plan being developed or if they're undertaking a review of their current school travel plan. The objective of these is to encourage more sustainable travel to and from school, also contribute to a safer environment round about the school and to increase road safety on the journey to school as well. The whole school environment, the whole school community can be involved, whether it's pupils, parents, staff, through to parent councils and school boards and community members as well. And part of the process of school travel plans is undertaking some element of consultation. So each school travel plan is developed as bespoke to the school, those that are involved within the school and the environment round about that individual school as well. Ideas and campaigns are discussed with the school to encourage car users to think about their journey to school and how it can be more sustainable. So also promoting walking, cycling and initiatives such as Park and Stride. And it's hoped that through such targeted campaigns and initiatives that more emphasis will be put on safer and healthier school journeys by all within the school community, and working towards the future journey to school that's less reliant on car journeys and fossil fuels. In completion of a school undertaking the school travel plan process, each school will receive a school travel plan award, banner and some promotional materials for those within their environment. And ongoing monitoring and support will be extended to the school as the school travel plan is an active document, so the campaigns and initiatives are ongoing and can be reviewed at any point. As detailed in section 3.6, at present there's 78 schools who have completed a school travel plan, with a further 60 who have started the process. Jumping down to section 3.10, there's a wide selection of campaign materials available to support schools with their school travel plan actions. So that's in the form of printed leaflets, booklets and materials, through to social media packs and images, banners, signs and on-site visits with items such as a portable vehicle activated sign. In section 3.11, there's some positive examples of school travel plan activity being provided, just showing some of the schools and some early learning units that went through some exercises and some focuses within their establishment. Just to show you a few wee pictures there, just to give you some pictorial information. So the top left and the bottom right-hand photo is Carnwath Primary School in Clydesdale. So this has been the latest school to receive the School Travel Plan Award and Certificate. And in the picture, that's the school's junior road safety officers who've been working on planning road safety awareness within the school. So they focused on Walk to School Week and implementing other actions from their school travel plan, which included a focus on parking and also the speed of traffic. So as I said, the bottom right-hand picture is also Carnwath. That's one of the streets near the school where we had visited with the vehicle activated sign. Again, raising awareness of speed round about the environment of the school, and also about the education with pupils regarding stopping distances, speed limits, etc. At the top right-hand photo, that's a picture of Mossneuk Primary School and their Junior Road Safety Officer notice board. Within that school, the Junior Road Safety Officers have been holding monthly meetings to discuss their school travel plan and relevant actions. They have implemented a parking pledge within the school community, a road safety poster design competitions. They have issued out questionnaires to review their school travel plan, and they've had visits with the vehicle activated sign as well. The most active thing they've been involved in recently is promoting the Living Streets WOW travel tracker, Walk Once a Week travel tracker, and Walk to School Week, which took place in May. At the bottom left-hand side, it's one of the early learning centres that we see there. We've had quite a lot of activity within Woodhill Nursery in Kirkmuir Hill and Avondale Early Learning Centre in Straven. And both establishments have been focusing on the Go Safe with Siggy road safety materials. So we see in the picture the Ziggy Road Safety Mascot having visited one of the establishments there and handing out a load of promotional items to the pupils and also some materials for the parents, so that the road safety message is hitting both the young people and also those that take care of them and are in charge of their road safety on a daily basis. So just another way of raising awareness within the nursery establishments, but also with pupils and the parents as well. Section 4 details road safety through curriculum for excellence. That's one of the ways that we promote road safety within our educational establishments. There's a road safety within curriculum for excellence publication by Road Safety Scotland, which details the various initiatives and packages of information that is available to schools and nurseries, and encourages them to uptake these different materials and to use them as fitting within their own establishment. We also have developed local materials, and section 4.3 just details one of those, the Be Safe, Bus Safe activity booklet. Again, in recognition that not every pupil can walk or cycle to school, they may be allocated school transport. So no matter what the method of travel is, we also deal with that and provide road safety information and support to such pupils as well. Section 5 details the Cycle-Friendly School Fund that is made available by Cycling Scotland, where scooter parking and cycle shelters can be implemented using that fund. So section 5.5 details that during the year 2022-23, we submitted bids through the Cycle Friendly Fund and received a grant to provide cycle and scooter parking to 5 schools. And they're detailed in section 5.6, exactly what was provided at these establishments. We have applied for future funding, as noted in section 5.8, to install more scooter and cycle parking within other schools who have expressed a demand and a want for such provision within their establishment. Section 6 details the National Walk to School Week by Living Streets, which was held from the 15th to 19th of May. So that's one focus week where schools can put a lot of focus onto walking and really engage their pupils and also the school community in the sustainable travel message. We worked with Living Streets for this year's Walk to School Week, and through that support they offered out classroom packs to 58 schools free of charge. So that was a really good offer through them. So 242 classroom packs were issued out across South Lanarkshire with lots of reward stickers and certificates and classroom charts for the schools to utilise. Section 7 also details a WOW Travel Tracker by Living Streets, which is a comprehensive system to detail and record school travel habits through an online platform. It is used on classroom whiteboards or computers like iPads or some digital means within schools. And basically on a daily basis, pupils record on their device how they've travelled to school that day, and that's ongoing. And the pupils walk to school, travel actively once per week for that month. They're rewarded with a WOW badge. And this system also records quite a lot of good information on modal share for the school journey, which we can use and utilise within wider school travel plan work. So using funding which was acquired through Air Quality, through our colleagues, we have approximately 18 schools who have been engaged in the WOW Travel Tracker programme, and that is ongoing work that's continually in process just now until the end of the academic year. One of the other focuses was the Sustrans Big Walking Wheel, detailed in section 8, which is another online challenge to get pupils walking, cycling and scooting to school more often. That was a national challenge, again with an online portal, where schools could gain points for each active travel journey made by pupils. There was an array of prizes up for grabs and daily leaderboards, which schools were quite keen in checking in on. And just as detailed in section 8.6, South Lanarkshire schools, St John's Primary in Blackwood and West St Overton Primary in Straven, placed well nationally and were top of the leaderboards within Scotland as well. So in terms of implications, there's no major implications for employees. Financial implications with a grant of 10,000 from Air Quality, and cycle scooter parking and shelters is funded by a grant from Cycling Scotland and all other items within the Council's road safety revenue budget. In terms of this report, the forum is asked to note the contents of the report and the development of future school travel plans, that work would be supported. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Is there any questions, colleagues? Margaret?
Yeah, but just to say, a couple of meetings ago, we did ask if some of the stuff could be brought to committee. I see there's two there, but would it be possible, even for the first committee after the break, if we get some of the stuff brought that actually is available to schools? It's all right reading about them in a paper, but it's better if we can see them.
Yeah, so certainly the next meeting, what we can do, we can bring the full range of materials that we give out on loan to schools, as well as maybe a sample of the kind of printed materials that we have as well, just so you can see the full array of materials that we do have. From that time, we'll be better. We're moving road safety stores, and we'll be in a better position to have all the things organising it in order to let you all see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. I've got Colin Park.
Thanks, Chair. Just kind of building on what Colin was saying there, perhaps it's an idea that the members, those who are obviously in the building next time, if they want to come in 10, 15 minutes earlier or 10, 50 minutes at the end, it's obviously not easy to present the material, but they can come in, have a feel, have a touch, see what's there, ask any questions. So perhaps not a formal item per se, but the material will be there. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Is there any other comments or questions? No? Can we agree to the recommendations?
Agreed.
We agreed.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is Westwood Hill East Kilbride, pages 83 to 88. I'm going to ask Stuart Lair to take us through that. Stuart, please.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I'd like to do is make an amendment to the report. This is following further discussions between ourselves and colleagues in legal services in relation to the decision-making powers that this forum has and the petitions committee. So in that respect, on page 86 of the papers, paragraph 4.23, we'd like to essentially put a full stop at the end of the South Lanarkshire area and then remove the wording from the remainder of that sentence. Also remove paragraph 5.6 and 5.6 in its entirety.
Okay. I'm happy with that. So carry on.
Okay, thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide a report to the forum in relation to matters discussed and considered at the Petitions Committee of the 19th of April 2023 and referred by them to this Road Safety Forum. The forum is asked that the recommendations as set out in section 5 of the report are noted and supported. The background itself is set out in section 3 of the papers. The petition itself was lodged with the council requesting traffic calming measures at Westwood Hill, East Kilbride, which was subsequently presented to the Petitions Committee. The committee concluded that the matter be referred to the forum with a number of actions to be considered. The petitioner sought both traffic calming measures and pedestrian crossing facilities and mentioned observed issues with speeding vehicles along this route, difficulty in crossing the road and the fact that Police Scotland do not have the resources to deal with the issue. Paragraph 3.3 of the papers, we make reference to the information that was presented to the Petitions Committee and based on the casualty reduction policy and requirements to focus on areas really demonstrating where there is a need, and that's what we've been discussing earlier on in today's forum. In terms of traffic volumes, just to briefly mention that we monitor our traffic volumes throughout South Lanarkshire, and we're satisfied that there's not a capacity issue on Westwood Hill Road itself, and that further traffic monitoring will be undertaken in due course as part of our daily business. In terms of introduction of a crossing facility, that's set out in section 3.5 and details the methodology that is used in relation to assessing the need for that. In terms of the paper section 4, we're going to discuss the actions that were resultant from the Petitions Committee itself. In terms of action 1, we were to liaise with Police Scotland regarding enforcement action and to undertake a survey. We spoke to Police Scotland and they agreed to undertake enforcement action throughout the month of May. This resulted in their officers being on Westwood Hill on 13 separate occasions, and this resulted in a total presence of approximately 6.5 hours. Action was taken over different days, as well as at different times of the day as well. The conclusion that the police came to was that they saw strong compliance with the posted 30 mph speed limit and little evidence of excess speed, with one conditional offer for speeding issued and one driver was issued with a warning. It was recognised that a police presence may influence driver behaviour during some enforcement exercises. We undertook speed analysis and collected data as well through May, and this found that the average speeds were approximately 31 miles an hour and 85th percentile speeds were approximately 35 miles an hour. We've discussed these results with the police and they have given a commitment to continue to undertake enforcement actions commensurate with their other duties. Moving to the second action, and that was to repeat the gap acceptance survey that was previously undertaken. So we applied the National Assessment Framework criteria for this assessment. We undertook a survey on a 150 metre section of Westwood Hill in the vicinity of the junction of Newlands Road and Rockhampton Avenue, and that was undertaken on the 23rd of May this year. The result of the survey indicates that the volume of pedestrian remains low when compared to other locations in South Lanarkshire. There was a total of 85 pedestrians were observed crossing the road over a 12-hour period between 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. Of these, 13 were children, 54 were adults, and 18 were old age pensioners. The 12-hour duration of the survey was split into five-minute segments, and these identified that there was adequate gaps in vehicular traffic flow to allow pedestrians to cross. Out of the 85 pedestrians that crossed, 47 did not need to wait, 28 waited for between 1 and 9 seconds, 7 waited between 10 and 19 seconds, and only 5 waited more than 20 seconds. In terms of the demographics of the area and trip attractors in the area, such as bus stops, nearby shopping areas and schools, etc., we considered that as well, and we consider that the pedestrians that were surveyed on that day were relatively typical of what we would expect for this part of East Kilbride. The analysis has therefore concluded that while we remain unable to justify the introduction of control crossings on Westwood Hill at this time. In terms of action 3, we engaged with the school crossing patroller and other pedestrians on site, and this was undertaken on the 1st of July in the vicinity of the gap acceptance location previously described. And again, there was 2 periods that this was undertaken. The first was over the morning period between 7 and 9:30, and again in the afternoon between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock at night. A total of 47 pedestrians and the school crossing patroller were interviewed during both sessions. Pedestrians were asked how easy or difficult it was to cross the road. From this question, approximately 40% stated that it was very easy, or neither easy nor difficult to cross the road, while 60% stated it was difficult or very difficult. From the 29 comments received, approximately 34% stated that speeding traffic was a concern, and it was noted that this was also a concern from the school crossing patroller. 27% stated that they experienced difficulty in crossing at certain times of the day. Other comments were also received, and these generally related to the road being easy to cross, difficult to cross as they were disabled, the volume of traffic, and reference to visibility. It was noted that the perception of those interviewed on that day consider it difficult. Consider the road difficult to cross. However, this clearly contradicts the evidence that was collated during the GAP survey. So this demonstrated that most pedestrians did not have to wait more than 10 seconds to cross the road, even during peak periods. It was noted that most of those interviewed referred to feeling the vehicles were being driven at excessive speed on the road, and as previously mentioned, Police Scotland have committed to undertake further enforcement action. Action 4, we were to consider the findings and decide upon any actions, including the application of current casualty reduction policy. Separate papers that have been presented earlier on today outlines the current casualty reduction policy, the rationale behind it, and notes an improving casualty reduction record across South Lanarkshire. Focus remains on casualty reduction in line with our duties under the Road Traffic Act. The current accident investigation programme, as has been discussed earlier on today, and in terms of this location, it doesn't meet the criteria for any priorities. Subsequently, it is proposed that Westwood Hill is not deemed a suitable location to justify special deviation from the current road safety policy, which has been applied to the rest of South Lanarkshire. Moving to section 5 of the papers, the conclusions and recommendations. Improving road safety within South Lanarkshire remains high, as we've hopefully demonstrated from our discussion earlier. Their actions and policies are provided to meet the Scottish Government's casualty reduction targets. The Council receives many requests for road safety improvements, and this is simply not possible to fulfil every single one of them. Specifically, we'll continue to assess accident data, and a significant number of priority locations will continue to be identified and assessed. The resources are therefore prioritised to resolve known accident locations where people are already being killed or seriously injured. Difficult decisions have to be made when prioritising improvements, and it's not possible to solve every road safety issue where a problem could exist. Drivers themselves, whether they're residents or those travelling through the area, need to drive in an appropriate manner in line with their surroundings. Liaison with Police Scotland has been undertaken, as I've mentioned, and they've confirmed that they'll continue to undertake enforcement action. In terms of the GAP survey, this indicated that there was sufficient gaps in traffic to allow pedestrians to cross Westwood Hill. Therefore, at this time, there is no justification and priority for construction and installation of any traffic signal control crossing or alternative uncontrolled crossings. In terms of the remainder of the paper, there are no implications, and I'll pass back to you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Chair, for the detailed report. Is there any questions or comments? Ralph.
Thank you, Chair. I think this particular section, it just shows the importance that where there is local concern, that they do have an investigation, even though it takes up resources. I may be wrong here, but the conclusion to me seems to be that the real issue is a small number of drivers exceeding the speed limit, by more than the average. I could be wrong there. So from that, I understand that the petitioners realise the police can't be there all the time, and that South Lanarkshire Council should do more to reduce speeds. Not sure how we really do that, because most traffic calming methods on a relatively wide road don't seem to reduce the speeds of the maximum speed drivers. I don't know if that is correct. So I was looking at 4.6. So it must have been well worthwhile council doing a speed check, which isn't a police speed van with all the warning signs, so you find out which speed they're actually doing. So just on that, I've always been concerned where you put the detection cables. is it far enough away from junctions, etc., so they don't include vehicles that are just setting off from a standing start in the average speeds? I mean, I presume that you do that. And talk about the 85% percentile speeds. I just wondered if it was worth recording the actual maximum speeds that were recorded when you did the survey. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. Stuart?
Thanks, Chair. In terms of, I'll take some of these probably in the wrong order that you've presented them, but in terms of the location of the speed equipment, we do try and locate where we consider it to be the fastest point on the road, because as you rightly mentioned, we don't want to be picking up any slow-moving vehicles leaving junctions or bus stops, for example. In terms of the data, we record every single vehicle, so we get that full range of vehicles that are travelling on that road, and even pick up emergency vehicles, for example, travelling through attending a manned emergency as well. So all that data is used, and that's where when we do this for a longer period of time, so you'll notice that this is over almost a week, and in terms of getting data, then we get a flavour of exactly how the road is being driven, particularly when it comes to driver behaviour as well. In terms of reduced speeds and speed limits, you'll probably be aware through some of our correspondence that we are currently undertaking a review of all 30 mph streets within South Lanarkshire. We're currently waiting for a report to be finally submitted to us, which will then allow us to identify whether Transport Scotland's criteria is met for potentially introducing 20 mph speed limits on a road network. This will involve initially us presenting that report to Transport Scotland, along with all other local authorities, and then what will hopefully come out of that process will be a way forward. So it may be that within the next 2 or 3 years, then we'll be able to identify which streets within South Lanarkshire will be suitable for 20 mph speed limits. And again, that's something nationally that is going to potentially be brought forward, and that will have probably one of the biggest impacts on road safety and the potential for any particular conflicts to occur on the road network. And that is something that, as a local authority, we're relatively supportive of. It's already identified in our local transport strategy, where we want to introduce as many 20 mph areas as we can. In terms of excessive speed, it is something that does concern us all, and there are national campaigns, for example, to try and target driver behaviour, and we very regularly put out information through those national campaigns, through social media, etc. And we're also developing some of our own campaigns, particularly within residential areas, to reinforce the message that you shouldn't drive at the speed limit. You should drive at what the appropriate speed is, and there is a subtle difference there. And at the end of the day, it's everyone's responsibility who's using the road network to do that safely. And that's where a lot of our discussion earlier on today, we've highlighted certain elements where we'll be targeting resources, particularly when it comes to road users and road user types. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Norman?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's an issue that occurs to me that's perhaps a bit wider than what's already been discussed. What seems to come through in a lot of these cases is there's a difference between the perceptions of how safe somebody thinks the road is and what the statistics in terms of accidents actually show, and obviously it's the latter which determine whether there are changes made or not. But I wonder how this affects ambitions for active travel, because it seems to me that if people are to choose to walk or cycle, it's more the perception of how safe it is that will determine whether they do that or not, rather than the actual statistics. So I don't know if there is an answer to this, but I'm wondering how we sort of reconcile the two to make it seem to people that it is safe and easy to and indeed pleasant to walk and cycle, if they don't currently perceive it as so. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense, Norman. Absolutely. Stuart?
Yeah, you're very correct in what you're saying. Sometimes the perception and actual statistics do differ. I hope that with analysis that we've done, not just on this occasion, but in every other inquiry that we get, we do go into this level of detail. And we need to be comfortable that what we're presenting as a council back is a true reflection. Officers also go out on site to get a feel for the area as well. The characteristics of one road will be different from the road round the corner as well. In terms of how we are looking for the sort of ambitions for active travel, and this is one that we've been taking forward through undertaking active travel studies. So East Kilbride was actually the first active travel study that we did. And we've replicated that throughout the rest of South Lanarkshire. So all our main towns and villages will have an active travel study. I'm associated with them. We're just waiting for the final 3 reports to be submitted to us. And one of the prime concerns that came out just was the very point that you're raising. What are the problems? What are the issues? What are the concerns? And what are the constraints to attracting people to walk and cycle more? And a lot of that came down to having appropriate measures, having appropriate infrastructure present. Where we've seen an increase in growth in cycling and walking, it's where we've been implementing some of our latest cycle route networks, and the numbers that we're seeing are encouraging. So we also have count data as well that's available to us. We've got a number of counting locations that we can extrapolate data from all day, every day. And again, they're showing trends which within South Lanarkshire, but also nationally as well, that show that there is more people cycling and walking now. And as a local authority, we are keen to bring in as much funding as possible to facilitate new pieces of infrastructure that make walking and cycling a lot easier.
Okay. Thanks, Norman, and thanks, Stuart. Julia, you got a question?
Yes, Chair, it's a point of procedure. I'm very aware that the Road Safety Forum is not a decision-making body, and reading the report, the Petitions Committee has asked us to consider a number of actions, and we're being asked to approve a recommendation. Where will that recommendation, as decided here, be considered? Because I'm not sure from the report that we're being asked to make a decision of aye or no whether the recommendation is approved, but we're certainly being asked to make a recommendation on the recommendation.
So, I mean, I take your point, yeah. The decision of the Petitions Committee and the input from officials is what we are considering here today, but the recommendation for the forum is asked to approve the following recommendations, that the recommendations as set in section 5 of the report be noted and supported. So you're right, we don't have a decision-making part in this. It's merely been presented to the Road Safety Forum because it is a matter of road safety for us to know. And I see Colin has wanted to come in to speak to that. Colin?
Thanks, Chair. If it's okay for me to speak, I think it just kind of valid point from Councillor Mars. Just to point out that the policy that we as officers are adopting has been via the local transport strategy, which is currently kind of running between 2013 and 2023, subject to a review that Stuart's talking about. That is a policy that has been to committee. We're not proposing any changes to that. That's what we explained at the Petitions Committee and highlighted that we were simply adopting that. What the Petitions Committee said, obviously, this is a particularly appropriate forum to have a bit of a discussion. So there is no change, there is no recommendation other than asking the Road Safety Forum to note that we as officers are applying the policy that's been to committee. So should, for example, let's say we reviewed this today and we came forward and members had decided, no, something's not quite right here, we want to change a policy, we want to update the policy or whatever, then that clearly wouldn't be for the forum to do today, but that would have then been up to the Community and Enterprise Committee, probably post summer recess. So there is no change. All we're asking you is to note that we're doing our job. We're following the policy that's been approved. You'll note from Stuart's paper at the very, very start that we are going through a review of the local transport strategy, which encompasses this along with many other policies. And that will come forward throughout the course of the next year through some consultation events with communities, with members, etc. And should there be any changes, that will probably hit our Community and Enterprise Committee sometime in spring 24. Clearly what will happen after today, specifically for this, is there will be contact made with the petitioner, Mr McFadden, just to highlight what the forum have supported today. And that will certainly be, as far as I'm concerned, an end to this particular inquiry. And then we'll move on. Thanks for that. Hopefully, Councillor Mars, that gave you a bit of a steer about where this will go next or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Julia, does that answer your question or address your comments, your concerns?
Exactly as I expected, that today is while we're approving a recommendation according to the report, it's almost for noting.
Yeah, is there anyone else? So I'd like to thank the officials for the amount of detail that's in this report and the work that's been carried out to address the concerns. It's democracy in action, that, isn't it? People raise concerns, officials look at it. It's not been the outcome that the petitioner had looked for. However, as you can see, the very detailed report means that it has been addressed and everything has been considered. So thank you to the officials for that. Is there any other questions or comments? Other than that, we can approve or agree the recommendations. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 9 on the report now. Lorna Hinshelwood, I believe, sorry.
So I was just going to redo your mic because the camera is not tracking, sorry.
Oh, I see.
Shoot. Apologies.
I don't know if there's any great advantage to actually be able to see me, is there? Maybe my Wayne's will be looking and saying, that's my daddy. Anyway, item 9 on the agenda is the Police Scotland Lanarkshire Division Road Safety Update, pages 89 to 92. Now, Lorna Hinshelwood would be the police officer addressing that, but she's not able to get a connection in today. So, and I have been informed that she sent material on.
Yes.
Elizabeth Ann?
Yes, Chair. Lorna has provided me with the updated statistics for paragraph 4.2. So I will circulate that to the forum following the meeting, and that just gives the forum the data which had been embargoed up until and including the 9th of June.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth Ann. So can we agree to note the report that's that is item 9?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I have no other items of urgent business. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Oops, a daisy. Thought we were done there. Item 10 on the agenda, beg your pardon, everyone. So, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service South Lanarkshire Area Road Safety Update, pages 93 to 96, and that's Gary Tudhope is going to take us through that. Gary, are you there? Yes, you are. Apologies, Gary.
That's not a problem.
Been waiting all this time, then we were going to...
It's not going to be 5 minutes earlier. Thank you, Chair. I'm here today to propose a report for the Road Safety Forum on behalf of Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. The purpose of the report is to update the Road Safety Forum on forthcoming campaigns and to discuss any national and local campaigns. The forum is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the information set in the report in relation to road safety campaigns be noted, and that the verbal update regarding these road safety campaigns can be noted. I'll jump on to number 4 here, which is our local and national issues. Scottish Fire and Rescue Service have attended a total of 22 road traffic collisions in Q4 of 22-23, which is a decrease of 7 from 29 in the same reporting period of last year. These incidents were spread across South Lanarkshire, and the highest recorded figure was within the Clydesdale area. There were 16 non-fatal casualties. Again, these were evenly spread across South Lanarkshire, and we have recorded an increase of 6 from the same reporting period of last year. During Q4, we recorded no fatal casualties within South Lanarkshire, and this is a decrease of 2 from the same reporting period last year. SFRS South Lanarkshire area are committed to ensuring the road safety to ensuring the road safety network is safe, with trends are identified. A proportionate engagement plan will be created and implemented along with the partners in the Road Safety Governance Board. For statistical analysis here, it's been regarding the total number of road traffic collisions. There's been a 24% decrease in it, and a 200% decrease in incidents where recorded a fatality. Non-fatal casualties have seen an increase from 10 to 16. This can be attributed to precautionary checkups, etc. Future engagements that Scottish Fire and Rescue will be taking as our community action team deliver road safety awareness talks to both local high schools, young drivers and third sector groups. We utilise our virtual reality headsets there, and it's very interactive. For example, one of the third sector groups we're currently working with is a charity called Shield, and they are drivers who have been convicted of road traffic collisions and they're following community payback orders. So within that, we cover road safety and the kind of risk-taking behaviours associated with that. Our volunteer scheme is now underway within Lanarkshire, and our adult volunteers are fully trained with using our VR headsets, and road traffic safety forms an integral part of this course. Also, we are utilising our fire reach courses within Lanarkshire to educate young people on the dangers with regards to road safety, and we are currently running several outreach projects, and particularly within the Clydesdale area. Our communication strategy for the forthcoming quarter is the Beep Beep campaign, the motorcycle safety campaign, the brake campaign, which is an ongoing annual project, as is Project Edward. Points 6 and 9, there was no employee implications on that one, and number 10 is for the quality impact assessment. This report does not introduce a new policy, function or strategy or recommendation to change an existing policy, function or strategy. Therefore, there is no impact assessment required, and there was not a requirement to undertake any consultation in terms of the information contained in the report. And that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Gary. Is there any questions or comments? Ralph.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if it counts as road safety or not, but at the last Clydesdale meeting, I thank the Fire and Rescue Service for the quick action. I think it was last Wednesday when there was a lorry fire at Abington Services adjacent to the petrol station. It was actually a fire in the lorry load, but a very quick action, the local fire brigade, etc. I was quite impressed. So I'll thank again in front of the Road Safety Committee.
Thanks very much for that, Ralph. Gary, you?
Yeah, I'll pass on East thanks to the local station commander. Thank you, appreciate that.
Can I just ask, how close, Ralph, is it? Was it Abington Services, did you say?
Yes.
Gary, how close is it to the nearest fire station?
There's one in Abington.
Yeah.
There's a...
Very close, yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking that, just yesterday at the Community Safety Partnership, there was discussion about closures of the Lead Hills facility, and that backup was provided from Abington. I think it was Abington and another area just across the council boundaries from an adjacent local authority area, but it's still fire.
Yeah, but it's an on-call station, so it's a crewed appliance. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So thanks very much. Carl, you want to come in to speak, Carl? Got a question?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Gary, I'm wondering around the motorcycle safety campaign. I know that in Aberdeen, Fife and North Lanarkshire, they've got the Biker Down programme.
Yes.
I'm wondering what the South Lanarkshire part of that campaign will include.
We currently run Biker Down campaigns. They're ongoing now without Lanarkshire. They're covered through our Lanarkshire service, so they take in people from South Lanarkshire as well. They're ongoing probably, I would say, probably 2 a quarter. They're ongoing just now. We also have one upcoming at East Kilbride Fire Station within the next month, which will be shared on our Twitter feed. I can't remember the exact date, but it's definitely within the next month.
Brilliant, thank you.
And that's an open forum. So with regards to Biker Down, you need to request to attend the course, but the one at East Kilbride is open to members of the public to just turn up and gain some education.
Right, thanks.
Thanks, Carl. I attended, it was a while ago, mind you, it was a couple of years ago. I attended one in Motherwell, very, very informative.
They're excellent, yeah.
Lots of things that people just maybe wouldn't understand about what happens if you come across someone. One of the most common things, I think, is somebody trying to remove a helmet. And if the rider of the bike's got a neck injury, probably the worst thing you can try and do is remove the helmet. But there's lots of information, lots of valuable stuff on that Biker Down.
Yeah, especially for bikers, it's ideal.
Yeah. Okay. Colin Smith.
Just a wee simple point, Gary, if you wouldn't mind sharing the details that's upcoming, we can certainly share the information within South Lanarkshire.
It's not a problem at all.
Raise further awareness around about our area. Certainly, I'm aware of the one coming up in East Kilbride, and we're now bit of an attendance at that as well. So thanks very much.
Excellent. I'll send you through a whole host of activities we've got coming up.
Thank you very much. If we've got no other comments or questions, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. So now I think I can safe to say that's the end of the meeting. I have no items of urgent business, so I thank you all very much for your attendance.